A producer, a director, an actor, Mary Tyler Moore's show. There's no doubt in Hollywood, in America, and around the world, we excessively use the descriptor icon. But the word exists for a few reasons, really a handful of reasons. And the comedy career presented with such longevity by Mr. Carl Reiner is one of the reasons we have that word. For he truly is an icon. He died last night at his home here in Beverly Hills. Of course, Carl Reiner, the great director of very funny films like Summer School, anyone?
Yeah. And even for you young kids that may be more familiar with the newer stuff, Toy Story 4, he was in that.
A frequent guest of Conan O'Brien.
For sure.
Who had a pretty legendary poker game with Mr. Johnny Carson, 40 times on The Tonight Show.
Yep.
I believe it's 9 Emmys, and Carl Reiner in this life also won a Grammy for a comedy recording with Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
Carl Reiner in 2008, I believe, lost the love of his life, his wife Estelle, and talked a lot in between that event and the remainder of his life about the days after losing the love of your life. And he suffered through that, but he continued to churn out funny stuff. I just was listening last week, honest to goodness, to one of my favorite podcasts, of course, the Brian and Jen podcast.
That's number one.
But you know I like the Carson podcast.
Yes.
That Mark Malkoff, who I
all the behind-the-scenes juice on Johnny, right?
And you have people like Carl Reiner's been on there 3 times, and he tells great show business stories and all of this. And he passed away at 98. This interview, I believe he was 96 or 95. And the ad-libs and the funny lines, because Carl Reiner, funny.
Yeah.
And when you're funny, funny things come out of your mouth, and your body does funny things, and you are funny.
Yep.
You're not saying funny. You're just funny.
Just a funny person.
And he was, until the end, by all reports, and at peace last night with his family in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, his son is Rob Reiner, and he worked on TV shows all the way through his life. I love this when people who love what they do work really up until the very end. He worked on shows like 2.5 Men, Hot in Cleveland, House. He was in Ocean's 11, Ocean's 13. As you mentioned, a lot of late night and a lot of movies. He worked a lot with Steve Martin, George Burns, and truly when you think about the award credits that he's had, you mentioned the Grammys. He's got 9 Emmys. He had 400 credits to his name. So really quite the incredible career. I had an opportunity to see him a couple of years ago at a broadcaster's luncheon.
And he was given an award of some sort?
Not a fan of President Trump.
Oh, that's funny. And I'm
definitely not a fan, but he was funny.
And you know what? Carl Reiner, Carl Reiner, to understand, not that I ever met Carl Reiner, I'm sad to say, the iconic director, writer, producer, performer, and 98 years old, ending this earthly life last night in Beverly Hills. His son, Rob Reiner, also a director, When Harry Met Sally, etc. These are people who are political, no doubt. So I think for Rob Reiner, you can understand I know about me. If you grow up eating dinner around a table where politics is discussed freely and openly, you kind of turn out to be a pretty political person yourself. And
I think that was the case, for sure.
And he was at ease with the subjects, so could talk about them and be funny.
Exactly. Really, good thoughts to the family, the Reiner family, and thank you to Carl Reiner for the contribution that he made to American pop culture, for sure.
For Carl Reiner to pass at 98, he gave and he gave and he gave so many laughs and smiles. He gave to the point where we surely would have understood if he had stopped giving so many wonderful memories and smiles to us, but yet he continued until 98. God
Absolutely.
Bless.
And really working all the way, again, being visible all the way to the end. So I think all we can do is be happy for him.